A very warm welcome to all of you to this webinar about the Swedish market for green coffee beans. My name is Terry Helsen and I am Trade Policy Advisor at Open Trade Gate Sweden, which is a department within the National Board of Trade Sweden. For this market overview, we have interviewed a number of players on the Swedish market, so we will not only provide you with statistics, but also with insight from different Swedish players on the market, what a producer or an exporter of green beans should have in mind before approaching the Swedish market. The agenda for this hour looks as follows. I will initially shortly tell you a little bit about Open Trade in Sweden, who we are and what we do. After that, we start to map up the Swedish market. The third point of agenda is the highlight of the day, as we have interviewed both importers, coffee agents, and coffee roasters for this market overview. You will meet a special guest, Mr. Per Nordby, that is actually wearing all three hats at once. He is an importer and a coffee agent, and furthermore, he is also running a micro roasting company. After our special guest, we continue the presentation with preparing for market entry and Swedish business culture. And altogether with that, we will have recommendations from Swedish buyers. At the very end, we are finishing with question and answers, and you're very welcome, as Linda said, to mail in any questions you might have either to me or to Per. Before saying anything about what we do and our new initiatives, I wanted to show you the team that works at Open Trade in Sweden. We are currently a core of 6 people. Emma, Linda, and Constanza have been working at Open Trade in Sweden for a few years, while Anneli, Amanda, and myself joined this year. We have quite varied backgrounds. Some of us have worked mostly with the trade promotions and export strategy, while some have worked with trade policy and trade regulations for many years. I have been working in the private sector with export sales and taking care of customers and distributor networks in different countries. The main mission for our activities and overall goal is to facilitate trade from developing economies to Sweden and the European Union. All our services are free of charge for the exporters and trade promotion organizations that we support in developing economies. We have 2 main types of activities. We work as a point of contact and with capacity building. So Open Trade in Sweden are split into 2 parts. The first part is about being a point of contact for exporters and the export promotion organization. We collect, analyze, and share information with exporters abroad and importers in Sweden. The aim of our point of contact is to be a one-stop shop for exporters from developing economies. Excuse me for that. We provide information on legal requirements and private standards, but also on market trends and other relevant information that the exporter may need when considering the Swedish market. Our website is our most important channel for updated information on export matters, and this summer we launched a new version of our website. As mentioned, our main channel with you and all exporters and importers working with trade going from developing countries to Sweden or the European Union is our website. We are continuously working to make sure that the information is updated, and as we have new market studies or other updates, we aim to put them on the website as soon as possible. For example, the full report of this green coffee beans will be uploaded shortly after this webinar. My colleague says that it will be happening sometime during next week. We have also launched a new online tool to help exporters to get ready for exporting to the European Union and Sweden. We call it the Road to Export. I would recommend you to check it out if you are interested in exporting to the Swedish market, but you're not sure where to start. We have also the possibility to work with capacity building in longer term projects. This slide shows you what Open Trade in Sweden can do in the process where a company wants to reach out to the Swedish market, or alternatively a business support organization that wants to support their exporters in their process of reaching the Swedish market. Here we work with building the capacity within our partner companies or our partner organizations and really trying to get companies close to the Swedish market through multi-year projects. The steps will look different depending on the needs of exporters or the business support organization we are supporting, and we're always trying to adapt our projects as much as possible. Some of these steps are more complex, for example, finding a buyer or making a matchmaking, it is usually done at a later stage of our project when we know that the companies are export ready and the product offering will be a fit for the Swedish market. The Road to Export is a new tool that we have just launched. It is a step-by-step approach to an informed way to start exporting. The Road to Export is divided into these 5 modules and finishes with a checklist where the exporters can check what information, skills, and material they have and what they still need to work on in order to be ready. This can be used directly by exporters, and it can also be a good tool for export promotion professionals to assist exporters in the export journey from a complete beginner to a complete pro. That's the whole idea. The different steps and links to relevant data can be found on our website, but our idea is also to work with interactive trainings in this approach to export. So let's start the main theme for today. Sweden is one country within the European Union. So before we start drilling down to Sweden, we have to take in mind that Sweden is a part of the European Union, which is consists of 27 countries. You have 450 million consumers in the custom union. It is the custom union, which means that you have the same import duties, the same product regulations in all the countries within the European Union. So it doesn't really matter if you're exporting to Germany, Sweden, Spain, the import duties and the product regulations are the same. The difference will be that in each country you have your different working culture, business culture, language, and it's that you need to have in mind when you're trying to adapt. So if you remember, as I told you before, the European Union has 450 million inhabitants. Sweden, we're a big country, the 4th in size in Europe, but a very small population, 10.5 million inhabitants, of which 86% lives in the city. We import twice as much food than we produce, and we spend about 21% of our income on food and drinks. And we love coffee. We love coffee as much, so we are ready to pay €3 for an Americano at a coffee shop, or €5 to €6 for a cafe latte or a cappuccino. It's not that we like to pay that much money, but we do it because it's our culture to drink a lot of coffee. Sweden is one of the largest coffee consumers in the world. One reason might be that Sweden has long, dark, cold winters and we are located where we are located. And this encouraging the consumption of hot and energy-boosting drinks. Another reason is the deeply rooted tradition for coffee breaks, both at home and at work. Coffee breaks we call fika in Swedish, and fika means that you're having a cup of coffee, and maybe a little biscuit or a cinema bun, which are very typical for Swedes. Swedish companies encourage coffee breaks as it gives the employees, the employees, not only the possibility to take a break, but also to interact with each other. Many good ideas and solutions originate from brainstorming over a cup of coffee, and hence coffee breaks might be the reason why Sweden is one of the most innovative countries in the world. This slide shows that Swedes consume on average 7.7 kilo coffee per capita during the year 2021. and it placed Sweden on the third place among countries which consume the most coffee in the world, only beaten by Finland and Netherlands on the second place, 8.2 kilos per capita, and Luxembourg on the first place with 11.11 kilo. On this slide, I also have to mention that Finland, Holland, and Sweden, they are the three user suspects among the most, I mean, of the biggest coffee drinkers in the world from year to year. Luxembourg was a little bit of a bubbler, came from nowhere, but we congratulate Luxembourg for this first place this year, and let's see what will happen next year. Interesting still with all these four countries are that in total they have a population of 34.1 million. And if you compare that with the total amount of people living in the European Union, it's a little bit less than 8% of the total population of the European Union. The global coffee market is dominated by a very few large roasters. The industry has in the past years gone through a consolidation with mergers and acquisitions, which has resulted into that about 89% of the total European Union's imports of coffee is roasted in only 6 countries. The largest roasting industries are Italy, followed by Germany, France, Netherlands, Spain, and Sweden. In 2020, over 1.9 million tons of coffee were roasted in the European Union. The amount has increased by 10% since 2010. And the EU coffee production was worth about 11 billion euros in 2020. And among the EU member states, Italy produced about 616,000 tons of coffee. That means 32% of the total production in the European Union. Followed by Germany, 571,000 tons. France, 149,000. The Netherlands, 134,000. Spain, 128,000 tons. And Sweden, 88,000 tons. And about 5% of the total production of coffee in the European Union. The Swedish market is dominated by 4 big coffee roasters, Arvid Nordquist, that are situated in Stockholm, Gevalia, that are located in Gävle, Löfbergs, located in Karlstad, and Suegas, located in Helsingborg. But in some regions, also close to these big 4 coffee roasters, there are micro roasters or local roasters that are the leading brands in specific areas, as it's very trendy nowadays. The trend of micro roasters is also growing, as Sweden has so far over 80 micro roasters across the country, and the number is growing. So 80 might be a little bit too little to say, but at least 80 to 100. Also, some Swedish roasters have been targeted in the above-mentioned international consolidation and acquisition process. For example, Gevalia has been acquired by GD, while Suegas nowadays is a part of Nestlé. The 4 big dominating roasters, they have about an 84% share of the total Swedish coffee market. The remaining part is spread out among smaller roasteries and the micro roasteries. And if we say smaller roasteries, they have a market share from about 1 to 3% of the total market, and it's about 6 companies that can be called smaller roasteries. The other ones are micro roasteries. The most sold coffee in Sweden is ground coffee, about 77% of the total sales, followed by instant coffee, 12%, capsules, 5%, whole beans, 3%. And this last one is growing since we have a lot of new modern coffee machines which are making good coffee at home. On this slide, you can see the Swedish coffee import. from 2018, marked in blue, to 2021, that means last year, marked in red. In 2021, Sweden imported 98,000 tons of green coffee beans. It's a slight decline from 2020, when it was 110,000 ton, and 2019 was 112,000 ton. Reason for the decline, one reason might be, or is, due to the fact the increasing market price on coffee the last 2 years, but also I'm expecting a small decline due to the fact of the pandemic and the problem of deliver and finding free capacity on ships during this time. The total value of the Swedish coffee import in 2021 was $507 million, or 447 million euros. And on average, the total Swedish coffee import, 84% sustains of green coffee beans, and the others are already roasted coffee or essences, extracts from coffee, etc., etc. Another reason why Sweden imports a lot of green coffee beans is due to the fact that we do have our own roasting industry. And when it comes to the custom units, the European Union and so on, we have no custom duties on green coffee beans to the European Union, but on already roasted coffee, you have a custom duty, and it depends a little bit from where you are exporting and what kind of trade agreement you have with the European Union, but it is from 7.5% or down to 2.6%, if my figures are correct, which they are. The big Swedish roasters are mainly buying their green coffee beans from coffee trading houses, but also on direct basis from the suppliers. As visible on this chart, a big part of the Swedish import of green coffee beans is from Europe, where the coffee is then being reloaded on ships bound for Sweden. As you can see, the biggest trading partner for coffee or for green coffee beans are Brazil, followed by Switzerland, Peru, Germany, Honduras, the Netherlands, Belgium, Kenya, Colombia, and the UK. And the interesting thing is then, if you notice it yourself, 5 out of 10 countries are located in Europe and not at the producers. It's not a producing country of green coffee beans. Smaller roasteries are usually buying green coffee beans through coffee agents who has contacts with several trading houses in Europe. This channel gives the smaller roasteries and micro roasteries the opportunity to buy smaller quantities of green coffee beans whenever they might need them. Usually the delivery time from order to delivery is around 1 week, but it can also be 1 to 2 days, depending if a coffee agent or the importer has the green beans on stock or not. And that was not the right way. Here we go. And the 10 biggest trading partners for green coffee, they have a share of 76% of the total import of coffee in total, and the rest is other countries, then about 1/4. So now we have gone so far with some basics facts about the Swedish market, but before I continue my presentation, which includes recommendations from different Swedish market players, it is time for me to introduce to you our special guest, Mr. Per Nordby. Per is an experienced coffee importer, coffee agent, and is also very busy managing a micro roastery, all under the company name Kafferäven, which in Swedish is translated to the coffee fox. Per, are you with us?
I am.
And I will just see if I can stop sharing my screen. Here we are.
See if I can start the video. Hey, hello.
Hey, thank you for joining us, Per. Thank you for taking your time.
It's my pleasure.
And my first question to you, Per, I mean, as an introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, how come at the first point you started in the coffee industry? I mean, what background do you have, and what did you do before you started your own coffee business?
Well, once upon a time, I was young and I needed a job. And as you've been saying, we have a very strong coffee culture, and I spent a lot of time in cafes. And I figured I could just as well work in a cafe rather than and earn money instead of spending money. So I started applying for jobs in cafes and got one.
Mm.
So that was how I started. And I do like the cafe environment and the kind of meeting place a cafe represents in Sweden. So it's the environment rather than the drink that first brought me to the coffee industry. But I very soon also got a hang of the barista culture that also started to grow strong in Sweden and Norway, where I worked at the moment in the beginning, at the time when I started. So I was kind of lucky to start in the coffee industry when a big change was about to start, and specialty coffee started to be a thing, and the craft of being a barista started to be a thing as well.
Mm. But this is also, I mean, the difference between ordinary people and entrepreneurs. I mean, you were working in a cafe, you had this, I mean, for a couple of years, but what possibility did you see? I mean, what did you want to achieve?
I think I have a strong interest in flavors, which kept me in the industry. I have a strong interest in traveling, which kept me in the industry, and I guess curious by heart. So I wanted to understand the steps needed before the coffee came to me. Like when I worked in a cafe, I was lucky to work in a cafe for a while that worked with many different roasters and changed roaster fairly often. And that got me to understand that it matters a lot who roasted and how coffee was roasted. So I wanted to learn more about the roasting step.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to work in a company that was about to start roasting and step forward when it was time to roast, and learned that step, and that brought me closer to the green coffee. And I was curious about what made coffee taste different from different origins, and I did what I could to dig deeper into understanding more what created the diversity in flavors and what could be done to control the quality in the green bean.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And then you decided all of a sudden you took the step and created your own company. From which country did you start first to import your green coffee beans?
I started with Nicaragua and Rwanda.
And the reason for that was that you already had the contacts via your experience earlier.
Yes, exactly, and that's it's the two countries where I knew people both in producers and exporters, so I could solve the logistic puzzle without having to have the volume, because the one was like 500 kilos or 300 kilos I imported the first time. So small volumes, too small to ship in a container, but for itself. But I could also with the contacts I had from previous, I knew importers as well that could bring my coffee into their shipment, and that way bring it all the way to me.
Hmm. And what did you do initially with these green coffee beans that you were importing? Did you trade them, or did you roast them at once and finding customers for your own roasted coffee, or what was the plan?
When I started my own company, the first plan was to start a trading company, solely trading, because I had seen when I started roasting in 2007, there were very few importers in Europe that had any transparency in their trade. It was very hard to find information about who was the producer. And when I started my own company in 2012, I still had that mindset that I needed to find my own producers if I wanted the traceability. And I also knew that other roasters wanted that traceability. And since I had contacts with producers, I figured I could be a trader. And it turned out to be a lot harder than I thought. And it turned out to be easier to start a roastery than I thought. So I ended up starting a roastery instead of trading, but also doing the trade for myself. So we imported some green at the same time as we started the roastery and used that coffee for the roastery.
And you mentioned traceability and transparency. Is that one of your lead things now when you're looking for, or when you're buying your coffee from your producers?
Yes, in the specialty coffee sector that we work in, and that many small roasters work in, the transparency and it's a key thing that's necessary to both use as a way of showing what we know about the coffee. It gives us a possibility to tell a story and sell the story with the coffee to increase the value of the coffee that we sell.
I think I started this question backwards, but if I put it like this, what is important for you? I mean, as an importer and as a coffee agent, when you are buying green coffee beans, I mean, what are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for green coffee of high quality, highest quality possible. I'm looking for producers that can give me a consistency in the product. If I find a producer that has super tasty coffee, but it seemed to be every second year or by chance, then the interest from my side is lower because I want someone to trade with for long term. So yes.
And when we're coming to, I mean, quality, it's supposed to be tasty, of course. How about certification? Different certification and so on. Is that important for you?
It's not important per se, because the certifications are, there's nothing wrong with them, but they are made for the bigger, it's made for big companies. It's a way for big companies to compensate for the lack of transparency. And since we can work with transparency instead to show that coffee comes from people who are great people and who care about the environment and their workers, that kind of substitutes certifications for us.
And as we have been speaking before, I mean, how do you do when you're visiting a new potential new producer and so on? What are you looking at when you're arriving to that farm?
Well, I look for people who share our values. I look for people who has the mindset of wanting to do the work needed to produce a high quality coffee, and who also have the possibility to do it. Who has the interest in having a dialogue throughout the year to better understand each other's need for them and for us. And of course, I look at the fields and plants to just make sure it's a healthy, well-kept agriculture. So it's a balance between the people behind and their values and needs and wants, and how they run the farms with workers and environments.
And the green coffee beans that you're importing later on, I mean, can you double check that they actually are as good as you're thinking when it comes to not using any illegal fertilizers and so on?
Well, it's when it arrives to me, I can't really control it. I need to make sure from the start that I work with people that I that I can trust and have a relation with. And it's more about relation than writing contracts, and it's about finding the right personal chemistry, that you understand each other and you trust each other, and that gives the base to grow together and rely on each other in business.
Yeah. How many countries are you importing from today?
We import from 8 countries, I think, but 4 countries that are our main origins in terms of volume. And that's Kenya, Ethiopia, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua. But on top of that, we also import from India, Rwanda, Burundi, and a little bit from Brazil.
And why those countries, if I may ask? Is it due to the flavor, or is it by chance, or is it that you actually like the people?
It's a combination. It's in each country I have people. In each country I trade, I need an exporter that can work as a spider and do the export step and do the quality control before exporting and make sure the dialogue with producers runs smoothly throughout the year. So in each of those countries, I have people that are my personal friends and that I trust, that work as the export step. There's other countries where I know producers, but I don't have the export step that can maintain and facilitate the logistics. So I don't trade there. So I like the flavors that I can get from the countries. I like the diversity of types of coffees I can get from each country. And I like the people. I have people I know and trust and like that I can trade with. And that's why I work in those countries.
And then it gets me to the next question. What kind of combination of factors would make you interested to buy from a new country?
Well, it's like dating. You need someone to do the right kind of introduction of themselves or what they can facilitate, and it needs to. If I would buy from a new country right now, I need something that I don't already get from the countries I work with. I needs to bring me something new. It could be that I can get a fresh harvest at a different time of the year where I currently have a hole, or it could be that the flavor profile is different from what I get from the countries I already work with, or that there's a person I meet that I just click with and we find a way to work together that's good for both of us.
Time is really flying here, but I would like to ask you the last question as well, which is also the main theme of this market overview. I mean, your recommendations. What are your recommendations to any producer, exporter of green coffee beans that is interested to enter the Swedish market? What should they think about?
Well, they should think about what they actually want to, who they want to trade with, because as you showed in your statistics, there's a few roasters that have the main volume. And first step is to think, do I want to work with volume and the big players, or do I want to work with many of the few, and how do I reach them? Or do I just need 1 or 2 of the small ones because I'm small myself? Find your niche in the market first, so you don't waste samples and time on sending coffee to everyone.
I think that is a good recommendations, and the reason for that we had you already now in the presentation was that I wanted you to say it yourself, because soon I will come with other recommendations. No better, no worse than yours. I mean, it's recommendations from everyone. It's no right and wrong. But thank you, Per, for sharing with us. I hope you will stay to the question and answers in a couple of minutes, and we'll get back to you then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, let's see. I will share my screen again. So we continue. So as now we're gonna talk about logistics. Determine your logistics solutions. Now we're back to this slide again, since I think it's a very important one. Before, big coffee roasters import almost all their green coffee beans by ship to the nearest port to the production facility. For example, if you look at Löfbergs in Karlstad, the purple spot, they import all their coffee to the port of Gothenburg. And while Svegas in Helsingborg, they of course uses the port that they're having close by in the port of Helsingborg. Arvid Nordqvist and Gevalia and another smaller roastery are using the port of Gävle. And that is why Gävle is called the port of coffee in Sweden. And from the ports, the coffee beans are either loaded to trains and trucks, depending on the distance to the roaster facility or warehouse. The recommendation from Swedish buyers of green coffee beans is to investigate how you will ship your green coffee beans to the customer before you contact any potential customer. The customer always would like to know where are the green coffee beans located? Are they at your farm in your country, at an exports warehouse, or in trading house in Europe? What is the estimated delivery time if a customer confirms an order? From a new supplier exporter, a big roaster would like to buy minimum 1 container, that means 21 tons, with the possibility to increase the volume during a year. And as Per mentioned, smaller roasteries or coffee agents, they would like to see some consistency, that you can deliver the same quality and the same green coffee beans for at least 2 seasons in order for them to be able to build up a product around your specific beans. Another thing also when we're looking at the map here is also that if you're trying to find different customers in Sweden, you can combine to have a big roaster and a micro roaster as 2 customers, because the 2 end products will differ. But if you're selling exactly the same green coffee beans to 2 different roasters, then they both would like to know who else are you selling to. And it's just to make sure that the end product will not be the same. So they are selling exactly the same thing. They want to have something unique, and they would like to have something different. So have this in mind, as Per said, be transparent, open, and no secrets, because that will be the best way to go forward. Okay, they will not buy that kind of harvest, maybe they will buy a different thing from you, but just to make sure that you're not disappointing your customers. All the big Swedish roasters are demanding at least some type of certification from the coffee supplier. As Per mentioned, it is a little bit to protect very much. It is very much to protect themselves, both as they are putting the certification labels on the coffee packaging, and also that, I mean, it is a trend today. Certification plays a major role today. This as both Swedish authorities, companies, and consumers are well aware about climate change and want to improve the working conditions for workers in developing countries. Rainforest Alliance, Fairtrade, and EU Ecolabel are some of the most common certificates for the big Swedish roasters. Usually they demand not only 1, but 2 different certificates. And I quote, "This gives a very high minimum standard to ensure that the coffee has been farmed in an ecological way and a fair way. Furthermore, coffee that is certified is easier to trace, and it brings a higher price to suppliers. So it's a win-win situation for everyone." And that quote was from a big Swedish roaster. For smaller and micro roasters, as Per said, certificates is not that important. Here, the personal relationship with the producer or trading house matters more. And through a long-lasting relation, not only the quality of the green coffee beans can be verified, but also how the green coffee beans are being grown, harvested, how the workers are being treated at the farms. So it's a different approach in both how you produce your coffee and how you are buying your coffee. And as Per said, it is a certificate. It's good to have. If you're supposed to have one, you should have an eco or organic certificate, but uh, other certificates is not really necessary, as we can verify everything at the farms and also analyze the soil that the green beans are growing in. So, how then to find a business partner in Sweden? Well, trade fairs is the best place to make new contacts, according to the people that we have interviewed. But the thing is that there are not really too many fairs in Sweden which are really relevant that any of the marketplace can recommend. So the only trade fair that they have more or less agreed upon that it's good to visit, it is the SCA Expo, the Special Coffee Expo in Northern America, if you want to be on the other side of Atlantic. But in Europe, it's the World of Coffee, which is the fair that the most large Swedish coffee roaster will prioritize to visit. And it takes place every every year in different locations. This year was in Milan in Italy, and the year before that it took place in London. And next fair will take place in Athens, Greece in June 22nd to 24th. Other way, except going to different trade fairs, might be to, I mean, do it online, as everyone said. It takes some time, but go on professional websites, LinkedIn, Instagram, and see see, I mean, if you can find something there. And we come to the last recommendations, that before you are contacting anyone, there are some steps that you should think about, but we're coming to that in the coming slides. Little bit about the Swedish business culture. When you're having meetings with Swedish importers or business partners, it can be important to know a few things about the business culture. I would say that most of these points that you can see in the slide are more or less true for all the Nordic countries, as like Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway, as we have similar cultures, but of course the business culture are also a bit different between these countries. But for us Swedes, we tend to be open, transparent, and we expect very, very much the same from you. Swedes, we tend to want to reach consensus before making a decision. It means that everyone in the company should more or less agree the way to move forward. And that could mean that in terms of business, that the decisions takes a long time, so you have to be patient. The key element to all business in Sweden is punctuality, and it's worth remembering this when it comes to meeting. Swedes sees reviews lateness in both social and business interaction as disrespectful. We like to be prepared for meetings, so rescheduling or changing the time of a meeting in very short notice, that is also not viewed very positive. It's very disrespectful. And also for many Swedes, work-life balance is important. And it goes hand in hand in respecting workers' hours and sticking to meeting times. So expect meetings to finish on time. Like this seminar or webinar, it will end very much in time, just to be polite. Now, before we reaching any questions, before we finish, the conclusion from this study is that there is a good market for green coffee beans in Sweden. We do drink a lot of coffee, and the coffee culture is deeply rooted in our traditions and everyday life. Sweden imports high quality green coffee beans, but also lower quality can be of interest depending on the purpose of the beans. It means create different blends or a special product with a story behind it. What makes the Swedish market even more interesting is the fact that it's only one of 6 countries within the European Union with quite a big coffee roasting industry. The recommendations from different players within the Swedish coffee roasting industry to producer exporters that would like to enter the Swedish market are very clear. Do your homework before you're trying to find a Swedish customer. And the different steps for the preparation process can be concluded into the following steps. Know everything about your green coffee beans and the quality of your green coffee beans, and be transparent about it. Be transparent with the information. Should you invest in certificate, or will you focus on the cultivation process and find customers that do not demand certificates? That you have to think about. Build a story around your farm, cultivation process, and your green coffee beans. Plan the logistics in advance to the potential customers. How will you ship the green beans from the customers and from where? Next one, how will you approach your customer? Finding them on an international fair, direct contact, or via other farms contacts perhaps? As Per said, don't send any samples without knowing that the customer is interested to get the sample. It is a waste of time and a waste of money. Send only samples once agreed upon. References is a very important thing. It's a very big advantage if you would have references who can confirm the quality of your coffee and how you are as a supplier. For example, do you deliver the quality as promised, and are the deliveries on time? Next one, after you have got a deal with a buyer, be a reliable and open partner. It means focus on making the business relationship work, this specific relationship. It means don't run after too many customers at once. Take one customer, do everything. And the last one, communicate frequently and transparent. If you know that you will be late with the delivery, tell the customers right away in order for them to be able to plan, adapt their activities for this. I mean, things happens, you can be late, but make sure that communicate it as soon as possible so they know that you're not hiding any information. So that was the last slide from me.